Magic the Gathering has a wide selection of planes in its canon, from the fairy tale-inspired Eldraine to the anime cyberpunk world of the new Kamigawa. The stories and theming of each world is phenomenal. What's not to love about the cosmic horror of Innistrad, or the human-dragon rivalry of Tarkir? Not all planes in Magic's history are remembered so fondly. Some are unfortunately kinda forgettable. I generally like most of them, but there is one that I can't like no matter how much I try. Ixalan. Why, you might ask? Aren't dinosaurs, pirates, and exploring mystical worlds cool as hell? Well, it's because Ixalan isn't solely about swashbuckling fun and gargantuan reptiles. What spoils my enjoyment is the two other central pillars of the plane's identity, those being the Legion of Dusk and the Sun Empire. It won't come as a surprise to anyone that these are the loose dressings for Spanish conquistadors and the indigenous peoples of Mesoamerica. The whole narrative throughline of the plane is just this. The Spanish vampires come to new lands to fight with dinosaurs and pirates. Oh, and the native people are there too. It is undeniable that the plane's theming is primarily centered around Mesoamerica. The very name of the plane, Ixalan, is likely derived from the word Ixil, a group of Maya people living in modern-day Mexico and Guatemala. The jungles and architecture, along with the prominent use of feather, jade, and gold motifs, lend a stereotypical Mesoamerican feel to sets featuring this plane. This is far from the first time Wizards has used real-world peoples and cultures, but Ixalan is different. While the other planes that use real-world history as a basis do so out of cultural appreciation and representation, Ixalan tiptoes the line of appropriation. The world's most important axis is not the one of mortality, but the axis of morality. This is a pretty large claim, I acknowledge that, but if you bear with me, what I have to say may change your mind. If not, you may learn a few things about the peoples and history of Central America that you did not already know. Let's first look at the other sets covering real cultural groups that were made after Magic's early years when the game was much more grounded in the real world. Coming first chronologically is 2004's Champions of Kamigawa. This set introduced the feudal Japanese plane of Kamigawa, a world centered around its namesake, the kami and yokai of Japanese mythology. The set is overflowing with monsters and spirits taken straight from folklore, and the ones that Wizards did take their creative liberty with are interesting adaptations to Kamigawa's themes of humans battling evil spirits. We have Kitsune, Oni, an assortment of famous yokai, and culturally significant creatures, along with many cards reflecting the real-world practices, philosophies, and technology of the Japanese people. All cultural elements in these sets are done with pure intentions and reverence. Theros is the same. You can hardly go more than a card or two without finding Achilles, Prometheus, a Hecatoncheires, Pegasus, or an interpretation of the ancient Greek pantheon. Greco-Roman culture is clearly and authentically portrayed in every single card. There isn't a single thing out of place. We don't see any kami or Eastern European elements randomly mixed in. There is no Baba Yaga or Casa Obake. The same can be said for Eldraine, Kaladesh, Kaldheim, and Amonkhet, although the Egyptian Amonkhet does have minotaurs and hydras. This can be explained by Greece and Egypt being Mediterranean cultures with a history of interaction. Ixalan is not the same. The plane is not themed around the peoples of Mesoamerica, but rather their genocide at the hands of Spanish invaders. Even just looking at the number of cards that cover indigenous culture versus Spanish culture or dinosaurs, this becomes painfully apparent. Looking through the entirety of this plane's first two sets, there are only a handful of cards that somewhat portray Mesoamericans, and the representation they do get is base and superficial. They just look vaguely native, with no real culture present in their design or theming. Wearing feathers and jade while standing in front of a step pyramid is not real cultural representation. The monsters are either dinosaurs, or 0% indigenous like dryads or sirens. Oh wait, there's the bat. I guess that counts. There's the chupacabra, you might say. Unfortunately, this is not an exception. The entire concept of the beast originated in Puerto Rico in 1955. It is about as Mesoamerican as the hamburger. There is no representation of real indigenous theology or technology. It's just pirate stuff.
In a box? Pirate stuff.
And random mystical artifacts that have nothing to do with real history. The people of Ixalan are not the Ixil people, or anything close, but rather the commodified image of what people think the Maya, Aztec, Olmec, and Inca people look like. This is a Spanish set, right down to the legend of El Dorado eclipsing the real human beings that this set is supposedly based on. There is not 1 ounce of reverence for the land's culture, just a light coat of paint. A costume not too far from when someone dresses up as a Native American princess for Halloween. It bears more resemblance to a slot machine than an accurate depiction of Mesoamerican history. No other plane has a real culture share the spotlight with its conquerors. Theros omits the Goths and political diffusion of Rome. Kaladesh leaves out British colonizers entirely. The new and modern Neon dynasty of Kamigawa skips over the war to end all wars and 2 bombs. But Ixalan does not omit anything except for the actual cultural representation and appreciation of the native population. In November 2023, players returned to Ixalan in the Lost Caves of Ixalan. And it's both better and worse than before. The last sets predominantly ignore the indigenous culture or commodified it. Where Lost Caves does give more space for Mesoamerican representation, it fails to escape the Spanish's cultural erasure of the natives, along with adding modern pseudoscience and bigotry. Let's start with the obvious positives. Some cards truly do reference aspects of indigenous culture. Most obvious are the cards depicting gods, taking inspiration from the real-world Kamazots, Kukulkan, and Quatli K, with a fusion of other mythological figures and symbology. These are great, along with the introduction of race of jaguar people and some more authentic clothing in the artwork. But that's about where it ends, sadly. This is great, and a step in the right direction, but where Lost Caverns really screws up is how it portrays the cities of Ixalan and their technology. It has a very Indiana Jones feel to it. There are spring-loaded traps, puzzles, and magical constructs for our Spanish invaders to navigate while they plunder the abandoned tombs for their shiny treasures, many of which are not real artifacts found by archaeologists but pop culture references, such as Minecraft's diamond pickaxe or the redstone of Asia from JoJo. The artifacts that are grounded in history, such as the Aztec calendar, are mystified in ways that echoes ancient aliens more than culture. The same goes for the numerous golems. There isn't any local mythology that resembles these mechanical or earthen constructs. The plane doesn't even focus on one single Mesoamerican group. It lumps them all together into one fusion. There isn't a shortage of material to go off of. There are stories of Kukulkan causing earthquakes to communicate with his sister. Or what of the time he flew to the sun and tried to talk to it, but burned his tongue in his hubris? What about the hero twins Hunahpu and Xbalanque and their numerous shenanigans, such as fighting a bird demon pretending to be the sun and the moon? The card Visage of the Dead could have been themed around the severed head of Hunahpu instead of a crystal skull. Or maybe have a card based on the vision that led to the founding of Tenochtitlan. The story of Huitzilopochtli could be used, a god who burst from his mother's womb fully grown while wearing armor to defend her from those who conspire to kill her. Ashnodil is based on him partly, so why not have a card depicting their birth to fend off the Legion of Dusk? They could have easily used the prevalent notion of self-sacrifice and blood offerings to have a field day with black cards like Sign in Blood. Also, where's the corn? Maize is deeply interwoven with the culture of this region, to the point where they believe that humans were created from it. Even so, there is not a single kernel of corn in Ixalan, seemingly replaced by dinosaurs and vampires. Every card in Theros has myth behind it, so why do basically none of these sets have any? Why does this matter, you may be asking? Although you may not know, there are still contemporary Aztecs, Maya, and Incas. They are still to this day victims of prejudice and cultural erasure. Not only did they have to undergo genocide and forced conversion at the hands of the Spanish, they had their scripture burned and oral tradition stomped out. And here we are. We have the opportunity for these people's stories to be told, but instead it's just references, pseudoscience, and appropriation, even if it is just a silly card game. These cultures deserve to be respected rather than commodified, just like any other. I get that Magic is trying to create an interesting and whimsical world that is larger than life. I like the idea of explorers and pirates fighting dinosaurs, but why couldn't that happen on Ikoria, or its own plane, not Ixalan? This set ends up being smaller than life by leaving out the rich culture and traditions of these fascinating peoples. Mesoamerica but dinosaurs is cool enough on its own. A book I would highly recommend reading is The Maya by Michal D. Coe and Stephen Houston. Here are a few passages from the final chapter named The Enduring Maya. This video is for all my Native American friends, be they North, Central, South, or anything in between. Finally, I'm going to leave off with the words of the indigenous people from their own mouths.
El genocidio empezó desde la llegada de los españoles.
Tenemos 500 años de resistir en nuestro territorio por todas las injusticias. Los pueblos mayas somos pueblos que hemos existido y que hemos resistido ante diferentes tipos de invasiones.
Es una larga noche que hemos tenido. Es un largo caminar que tenemos de ser exiliados en nuestra propia tierra, de ser obligados a no hablar nuestro idioma, de ser obligados a no usar nuestro traje que nos identifica.
We're inaccurately mislabeled as Latino or Hispanic or Latinx, but it's also caused a process of erasing our existence, erasing our identity.
Los gobiernos no son nuestros gobiernos, son gobiernos de los ricos, de grandes empresarios, terratenientes, pero no hemos tenido nosotros una representación dentro de los gobiernos, sea aquí en Estados Unidos, sea en otro país, no hemos tenido un reconocimiento.